Alright guys, it's time for the 2015 Philadelphia Eagles NFL Draft Review video, and then you're probably not going to hear me make a football video for the next couple months unless something cataclysmic happens. Anyway, there's a lot of things I want to say about this draft. A lot of things I expected to happen, a lot of concerns, a lot of just things that I'm very pleased with. All in all, I'm satisfied with the way this draft shook out. A few things had me scratching my head, but anyways, we'll go into all of that. Now, coming off of last year's draft and the collective group of basically nothings outside of Jordan Matthews, this has me concerned going into this year of now that Chip Kelly has full control of getting who he wants, when he wants in the draft, how he wants to go after them. That has me a little bit concerned. So I was like, oh my God, are we gonna pick a quarterback in the second round? Are we just gonna, pick all Oregon Duck players? Because last year, you got two Oregon Ducks in Huff and Hart, and they end up being not really much of anything. Huff was as much of a contributor as he was a detractor from the knucklehead plays he made that erased every single good play he made. But if he matures, he can actually be a solid piece in this league, hopefully for the Eagles. Anyway, I have my concerns, but all in all, it looks like Chip Kelly is getting it more. Like, he doesn't have to just all of a sudden, keep going after those Oregon players, or just with one pick, though. Maybe scratch my head, but we'll get to all that in a second. Anyways, let's just go into the picks here. First pick they made with the 20th pick in the draft, wide receiver Nelson Agholor out of USC. Now, I trust people that know the game of college football a lot better than I do, because the amount of knowledge I have in college football and the players on what team and how good they are and what division is tough and all that shit, my knowledge of that can fit inside a thimble. So I have to go by what other people say, what other people know, people that watch USC play, people that watch the Pac-10 and everything like that. And when this pick was made, I was hearing a number of people saying, this seems like a little bit of a reach. That's more of a wide receiver that you would expect to go in the second round, in that, you figure the Eagles will go after someone like Perryman, and then Perryman ends up going a couple picks later to Baltimore. And right off the bat, I'm going, oh no, it's Marcus Smith all over again, because this is the same things that were being said last year when the Eagles spent a first-round pick on Marcus Smith, a linebacker who spare a few times, some of which were just special teams plays, that could barely get a sniff of the field last year, and who's not even going to be on this team next year. Let's be realistic, he's going to get cut. The linebacker position is so heavy and deep right now in the Eagles that they don't have time for a Marcus Smith right now. So pack your bags and take your talents to South Beach like LeBron did. Anyway, not that he's going to play for the Dolphins. I mean, just retire, lay in the sun the rest of your life. Anyway, I just had a bad feeling when I started hearing that, but with Marcus Smith, you heard more of people saying yo, boy, that's a linebacker that, a lot of people had on their mock drafts going third, fourth round, whereas this Agholor was seen as more of a fringe end of first round, early second round pick. So, it's a little bit of an overreaction on my part when I started hearing that, and it seems like, from the people who know the game of college football, this guy isn't that much of a stretch, or a reach, I should say. People are still saying it's a little bit of a reach. I don't think it's a Marcus Smith type of a reach pick for the first round, and it addresses a need that is sorely needed to be addressed, which is wide receiver. You gotta hope a guy like this can at least be your second or third wide receiver on this team, and that you could get rid of a scrub like Riley Cooper and you don't have to rely on him being your number one. Hope Huff matures. Hope Jordan Matthews has a way better season than an already good season he had in his rookie year. And you got to get contribution out of a guy like this. You have to. I'm expecting, a guy like this to get at least 600 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns. That would get me satisfied. that would get me satisfied, because you need receivers to put up over 1,000 yards, get some touchdowns, like you saw to Jordan Matthews last year. I'm expecting at least play comparable to what Jordan Matthews did last year on this team out of Agholor. And he does look like a bit of a runt, which had me, they kind of had me scratching my head, because Chip Kelly's all about the big people, but beat up little people type mentality, and drafting like the bigger guys, the red zone type threats. So I'm a little concerned that this is not going to be much of any in a way of a red zone type receiver, but you got solid tight ends as far as the red zone goes, and you got Sproles, which is an excellent slot receiver. That's red zone points right there as well. So, I would have liked a bigger guy like a Perryman, but, hey, the guy looks like he fits Chip's system a bit better in Chip's mind, so I'm not going to complain too much about the pick. Like the pick. Next, Eric Rowe, 47th pick overall in the draft. Eric Rowe, cornerback out of Utah. Another sorely needed position that we need filled. This, again, they drafted corner and safety last year, and Jalen Watkins, can he even get on the field? Like, no productivity out of him last year. He couldn't even get a sniff of the field in most games. And thinking about it, they went heavy on the defense last year with corner, safety, nose tackle, linebacker. So you're looking at 4 picks last year in the draft that were dedicated to defense. The most productivity you got out of the defensive picks last year was nose tackle with Bo Allen. And it's not like he had a big game breaker of a season in any way. He's a guy that got in the field 10 times, in 10 games I should say. Had half a sack, 7 or so tackles. And while that's nice to, get some production out of that, when that is the lead amount of production that you got out of 4 guys that you drafted for the defensive end of the ball, that's pretty sad. That's pretty sad. That's why this guy, Rowe, has to be an impact player. Has to. Especially in a position where you're not exactly going to be taking numbers to fill the spot. Like this guy, he better be game time start ready, because that's what he's going to get thrown into. And last I checked, there's some pretty decent receivers in the NFC East that you're going to be facing 2 times a year. So this guy's got to be ready to go. All right. I like his highlight film and all that, but on just a side note, when people say like, "Oh, look at his highlight film" and stuff like that, I'm like, well, look at Tim Tebow's highlight film. Look at Marcus Smith's highlight film from college. They look like superstars, and they end up being nothing in the NFL. You can make an NFL highlight film for Tim Tebow that makes him look like John Unitas's better version. Anyways, this guy, he's got to come in. He's got to be productive. Again, you need someone to be productive in this spot. So, moving along, Jordan Hicks, linebacker. 84th pick in the draft. This is the first pick when I'm listening to it last night. And I'm like, Jordan Hicks, linebacker. Wouldn't we be better served taking like an offensive lineman here when there's still a decent amount of depth as far as O-linemen go? And I'm like, last I checked, we have Brandon Graham, D'Amico Ryans, Kiko Alonso, Michael Kendricks, and you're drafting another linebacker onto a team that is so thick with starter quality talent? And Chip Kelly's whole press conference afterwards saying like, well, we wanted the best available player on our board at that time. And it's like, you don't pass up just because you need a position filled elsewhere. You still want to go with your best quality position player. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So, like, if you had, like, a proven starting quarterback and there was a real good quarterback prospect left that no one took, like, if you're picking early on in the draft, people are going to be like, well, that's what Indianapolis did. Indianapolis is a rare example because Peyton Manning had an injured deck and they weren't even sure if he was coming back and they took Andrew Luck, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, like, I'm sorry, but that logic does not always provide to be true, because Well, number one, there was a lot of good running backs when the 20th pick came up in the draft, and obviously they didn't draft a running back for obvious reasons, because they're so deep at the running back position, but yet at linebacker position they're deep too. Now, a lot of people are going to be saying, well, Archfiend, that's because, guys like Michael Kendricks is just going to get traded from the team. Since when is that a definite? And on top of that, I think adding another linebacker, especially when you pick a linebacker in the top 100, you're going to expect him to be sharing time on the field and getting some, solid playing time. This guy cheapens any value that Michael Kendricks has as a trade value, because it makes the Eagles look desperate. Because everyone knows that they're going to be willing to give away an inside linebacker like Michael Kendricks now, because they're so deep at the position. So who's going to offer anything decent for Michael Kendricks now? Because it's so obvious. It's so obvious that they're overstocked in this position, and that they're going to have to, trade guys off. Anyways, this is the only move, and it's nothing against the guy. Like, hey, he's probably going to be a good, productive guy, etc., etc. But, why bring Hicks in when you could address just a bigger need? I don't know. That's more of the logic I would have gone to, and it's not saying Jordan Hicks isn't going to be a big productive player or anything like that. It's not a knock on him. I'm sure he's going to be fine or whatever. We'll see. But I don't know. That was the first and only pick that I had, that I saw last night, and through the whole draft, that really had me scratching my head going, like, why did they do that? Anyways, if the guy ends up being a stud, I'll eat my words. But I still would rather see him go for O-line depth, because you're looking at a really, really aged O-line coming out of this draft right now, because they didn't replace any of them. Anyways, next, cornerback, Ja'Cory Shepherd, 191st pick in the draft, first pick in the 6th round. So we're looking at our second cornerback picked in the draft. Again, heavy on the defense again. Last year, like I said, they picked 4 defensive players in the draft, and all but Bo Allen put up any sort of production for them. Again, this is a position they need to have addressed, and I like that they're going with young talent to fill this. And it's more like I feel that Chip is doing this because he's under the impression that one of these guys has to work. One of these guys. And, another thing I forgot to mention with Eric Rowe is the question of whether he's going to play corner or safety, because he played both in college, and it's, undetermined as to why he's doing that. I think what we're going to be doing here in preseason and training camp and all that is finding out, which guy's going to fit better where, because, not to spoil, but we have another secondary guy coming in the draft a little later here, in that, what these guys do is going to dictate where Rowe ends up playing. But anyways, moving on to what I'm talking about. Randall Evans, defensive back, picked 196th out of Kansas State. Again, third secondary guy picked in this draft. It's just I'm just getting under the impression that Chip is going to say one of these guys is going to come out and be a starter. They have to be. They have to be. It's fine if all the other guys split time, but you got to find a gem starter out of one of these guys you picked up. And again, Rowe is going to flip-flop, find out where he fits in, either safety or corner, and, have these new guys split time as corner maybe, or who knows, try and transition them into safety. I don't know about. Anyways, yeah, got to get one of these guys to work. And then with the final pick in the draft, went defense again. Defensive end, Brian Mihalik. Sorry if I brutalized his name. Defensive end out of Boston College. The 237th pick in the draft. So, here we go again. Another draft where you're looking at, 5 guys on defense? 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I count that wrong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys on defense, with the one guy being Agholor at wide receiver for offense. Chip, again, seems to be like he is going to settle and try to settle defensive woes with the draft like he did last year. It's got to pay off better. It's got to pay off better than what it looked like last year. Hopefully, the fault in the system was that Harry Roseman had his hand in a lot of these picks, and Chip Kelly wanted nothing to do with a lot of them. Spare the Oregon guys, which you got to think Chip Kelly was heavy in bringing Huff and Hart on this team. You gotta hope that someone like Jalen, you don't get another Jalen Watkins out of this. They can barely get time on the field in the secondary. I gotta see things to believe them. You can look at any one of these highlight packages and every guy looks like a stud. And the one thing you can't account for is how people are going to play in the prime time, on the big field, in front of the bigger players that are all a step above a lot of your teammates you played with in college. All in all, I'm a lot more optimistic going into this season. I don't know. I just feel that one of these secondary guys is really going to hit and be a stud player. Maybe it's me convincing myself of that, and you're not going to see complete busts like you did with all the defensive picks. Spare Bo Allen, like I said. I don't know, man. I feel better now going into the season. I don't feel that confident with Sam Bradford as my quarterback, but I look at things and I'm like, they won 10 games last year, and they had 2 turnover machines at quarterback. If the one thing that he doesn't end up being is a turnover machine, like you saw out of Nick Foles last year, like you saw out of Sanchez in the second half of last year, if that's the one thing, then who knows what can happen? Who knows what can happen? If you can keep the turnovers down and get more turnovers back on the defensive end. That's why this secondary is greatly better. Even if only one of these guys gives you solid starting production in the secondary, this defense is significantly leaps and bounds above what you saw last year. You had a 10-win team last year that lost a lot of close games. Lost a close game in Arizona, close game in San Francisco. Should have had a pick 6 in the end of the game on against Seattle at home in Philadelphia. But a lot of things like that. A lot of those breaks you feel are going to go the Eagles' way now because they shirt up on defense, and the offense, if anything, is just as productive, if not better, with a quarterback that is going to turn the ball over less if he stays healthy. That's the big if, but I'm liking the direction the team's going. I'm feeling a lot better about this team right now. It's definitely a better team than last year. And if you have a 10-win team and you could look at it, you can say, it's definitely better. Might not be leaps and bounds, Super Bowl caliber type better, but it's better. And let's see what happens. Have a good day, everyone. And for old time's sake, fuck the Dallas Cowboys. Oh boy, they're just confident that they can plug in any running back, aren't they? They might regret that. We'll see. Have a good day, everyone.